Hi everyone, welcome to Crime Chronicles. Today, I'll be telling you a story. On the night of September 24, 2003, in Sinsadong, one of the most prestigious neighborhoods in Gangnam, Seoul, South Korea, 72-year-old university professor Lee Dok-soo was sitting in his study surrounded by books and papers. In the next room, his wife, Lee Yoon-ok, 67, was resting quietly. Everything was calm until the front door suddenly opened. Before the professor could even understand what was happening, a man burst into the room holding a heavy 4-kilogram hammer. With a single blow, blood splattered across the desk, and the professor collapsed lifelessly onto his chair. His wife heard the noise, but before she could react, the killer was already standing in front of her. Moments later, she met the same fate. The apartment looked ransacked, drawers open, cupboards overturned, like a burglary. But something strange stood out. Nothing was stolen. The cash, the jewelry, everything was still in its place. When police arrived, they assumed it was a robbery gone wrong, but the truth was far darker. This was only the beginning of a killing spree that would terrify investigators and leave them chasing shadows. Here, I share real stories, brutal crimes, strange historical events, haunted places, and mysteries that leave us asking, what's really going on with people? Some episodes may contain violence or disturbing details, so please read the description carefully to make sure this episode is right for you. Now, let's begin today's case. The Raincoat Killer. Just 2 weeks after the first murders, on October 9, 2003, another crime shook the city. This one even more horrific. In Gangnam-gu, one of Seoul's wealthiest districts filled with mansions, tall gates, and cameras on every corner, a family of 3 was preparing for bed in their large villa. Inside were Gon On-sun, an 85-year-old grandmother, her daughter-in-law, Lee Suk-jin, 60, and her grandson, Go Jin-soo, who was paralyzed and confined in a wheelchair. Just before midnight, the killer crept through the garden, slipped in through the back door, and struck. The grandmother was hit first, killed instantly with a hammer. Her daughter-in-law fell the same way. Then upstairs, the killer found the disabled grandson. He was dragged from his wheelchair, forced to the floor, and murdered in cold blood. The next morning, when the son of the family called and no one answered, worry turned into fear. He went to the house, opened the door, and within 1 step, he screamed in horror. Again, the police assumed it was a burglary gone wrong, but once more, nothing was stolen. The money, the jewelry, the antiques, everything was untouched. By November 2003, the killer had struck again. He murdered a millionaire's wife in Samsung-dong, then a wealthy man and his housekeeper in another district. Detectives began to notice a pattern. The victims were all from Seoul's wealthiest families, but the strangest part was always the same. The killer never took anything. This wasn't about robbery. The killing itself was the purpose. And the worst part? He wasn't finished yet. Before becoming one of South Korea's most notorious serial killers, Young-chul was just a boy growing up in poverty. Born on April 18, 1970, into a very poor family, his father was absent and his mother struggled to raise him and his siblings. Poverty marked every part of his life: his shabby clothes, his speech, the way people looked at him. Bullying was part of his daily reality, filling him with anger and hatred toward anyone living better than him. As a teenager, he began showing violent tendencies, at first against animals. He captured and tortured stray dogs. At 18, he was arrested for stealing a guitar, his first prison sentence. After that, his life became a cycle of theft, fraud, and repeated arrests. In 1992, he married a massage parlor worker and had a son. For a brief moment, it seemed like he had settled down. But in 2000, everything changed. Yoo was arrested for sexually assaulting a minor and sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. It was his first recorded violent crime and the turning point of his life. While in prison, his wife divorced him. Instead of reforming, the experience only deepened his anger and humiliation, especially toward women and the rich. He was released in December 2002, but this time he wasn't planning on theft. He was preparing for something much darker. From September 2003, he began killing wealthy families. But in early 2004, he shifted his focus. Sex workers across Seoul began to disappear. Because prostitution is illegal in South Korea, no one looked too closely when these women went missing. For Yoo, they were the perfect victims. He lured them to his apartment. Once inside, he attacked them with his custom-made hammer, short-handled, extremely heavy, designed to cause maximum damage. After killing them, he dismembered their bodies with axes, knives, and scissors, disposing of the remains in the mountains. To make sure no one could identify the victims, he even cut off their fingertips before discarding them. Between May and July 2004, Yoo murdered at least 11 women. But unlike his wealthy victims, their deaths went largely unnoticed by the public. One brothel owner, however, grew suspicious. His workers were disappearing one by one. At first, he thought they had run away, but then he noticed a pattern. Every missing woman had last gone to meet the same client, using the same phone number. On July 15, 2004, that number called again, but this time it was a trap. Police were waiting. When Yoo showed up, expecting another victim, he instead found himself surrounded. He was arrested without resistance. In interrogation, police asked about the missing sex workers. To their shock, Yoo calmly confessed, not just to those murders, but to many more. First, he admitted to 19. Then 20, then 26. The police were stunned. Every time they mentioned a case, Yoo simply nodded and said, "Yes, that was me." But some of his claims didn't match any real evidence. It wasn't clear if he was telling the truth or playing with investigators. Still, he openly admitted to the wealthy family murders and the killings of sex workers. When asked for his motives, he said simply, "I hate women and the rich. They all deserve to die." At one point during questioning, Yoo faked an epileptic seizure. In the chaos, police loosened his restraints, and he escaped. He fled to his apartment where he frantically cleaned, destroyed evidence, and tried to erase all traces of his crimes. But his freedom lasted only 12 hours. He was caught again near a subway station. This time, police pressed him for the murder weapon. After heavy pressure, Yoo finally revealed where he had hidden the hammer. Forensic analysis confirmed it carried traces of human tissue and DNA from multiple victims. When Yoo was shown to the media, he was wearing a long yellow raincoat. That image earned him the chilling nickname, the Raincoat Killer. His trial was chaotic. At first, he refused to defend himself, saying he would boycott the hearings. Later, he apologized to the victims' families, only to suddenly lash out, attempting to attack the judges and even one of the spectators. Finally, the court declared the crimes were unprecedented, the pain irreparable, and the only just sentence was death. On December 13, 2004, Young-chul was sentenced to death for 20 murders. But South Korea has not carried out an execution since 1997, which means Yoo still sits in a prison cell today, officially on death row. This case didn't just reveal a serial killer. It exposed deadly flaws in South Korean policing, delays, poor coordination, and missed chances that allowed him to kill again and again. In one chilling confession, Yu said the most terrifying moment of his life wasn't seeing a severed head, but when his young son called him while he was cutting up a body and asked, "Dad, do you still have a cold? You sound strange." His story has since inspired films, books, and documentaries, including Netflix's 2021 series The Raincoat Killer, Chasing a Predator in Korea. In his final words, Yu said, "I did this to punish society. When I realized money was the only thing that controls the world, I decided I would become the punishment." And that was today's story. If you found yourself asking, what's going on with people? Then don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you have stories you'd like me to cover, join our Facebook group where we post real photos, sources, and upcoming cases. Stay tuned for more chilling episodes on Crime Chronicles.